our military analyst. Sean Bell is with me in the studio for more. Hi, Sean.
Good afternoon, Bell.
Let's start with BAE Systems. They've provided weapons to the Ukrainians before. Why the decision to provide more, and what kind?
The announcement is less about the weapons, actually. It's more about BAE Systems have announced their intention to put an entity into Ukraine. Now, that could be nothing more than an office and one person, but Kremlin has responded pretty aggressively to this. But if you look behind the headlines, as ever, with this, Ukraine has been embarked on this war with former Soviet Union weapons and kits, which are substandard to Russian. They're older, they're less capable, and the West has provided a lot of very high-tech Western weapons, but those supplies are limited. Eventually, they're going to have to find another way of providing them. The West is also looking to provide F-16 fighters, which is the next generation as well. And at some stage in the future, somebody's got to get Ukraine onto its own feet, so it's got its own indigenous capability. The challenge is, will that be back to former Soviet Union kit, or will it be Western kit? And part of this is trying to help them, obviously, transition. It's also that the Ukrainians, President Zelensky said he wants to take the fight to Russia, but he can't use Western weapons to do that. He's just announced they've managed to have invent a weapon that goes 700 kilometres. But of course, BAE Systems, if they bring some of their expertise to add to the innovation that Ukraine's obviously got, that could be a compelling formula for the battles ahead.
And of course, the cost of that will be a conversation for another day. Yes. Let's first of all talk about this meeting, this expected meeting between President Putin and President Erdogan. What can we expect from that?
Meant to be on Monday. We don't know much about it, to be brutally honest. There's been speculation that talks about peace. That looks incredibly unlikely. Neither side in this conflict seems anywhere close to negotiating for peace. What does look much more likely is around the grain deal, because whilst President Putin walked away from that grain deal very recently and he's destroyed a lot of the infrastructure in Ukraine, the Russians are the #1 exporter of grain in the world. They've also want to export a lot of their fertilisers and stuff like that. So it's actually will be both their interests to come to some sort of deal again. It looks likely that'll be on the agenda.
OK. And then finally, I know you've got some more detail for us on planes, your favourite topic. I know that. This one is from some damaged Russian planes. There were some questions around whether these had been damaged or not by Ukrainian drones.
There was. On a Wednesday, early as the morning, there was a massive wave of Ukrainian drone strikes across a lot of Russian targets, but particularly up at Pskov, up in the north. Now, interestingly, today, Ukrainians have claimed that some of those attacks were actually conducted from Russian soil, which is rather interesting. But at the time, the Ukrainians claimed that they destroyed 4 aircraft, these IL-76, these really big Russian aircraft. But the Russians were a lot more circumspect about it. The next day, this is the picture we saw. Unfortunately, there was a lot of cloud cover on the day. The aircraft circled, you won't be able to see very detailed, but there is some black damage done near the wing roots on both of those aircraft. But when we looked at today's satellite image, which we've actually seen, the sun has come out, it's a lot clearer. Suddenly now you can see 2 areas where there's the destruction of 2 aircraft. All there's left is little tailplane or whatever. Also, none of the aircraft that had those black damage on are visible anymore, so they've almost certainly been towed into a hangar to get repaired. And the other interesting thing, all the aircraft now are on the taxiways and not on those little aprons. That's almost certainly because the aprons, you know the GPS coordinates of those, and they will not want, the Russians will not want to leave them exposed. So despite the rhetoric that surrounds all of these reports from Ukrainians and from Russians, it does appear from satellite imagery that actually this was quite a successful attack by the Ukrainians.
Yeah, and this is certainly why we need you, because I look at those images and I would not have been able to identify half of that. So thank you very much, Sean Bell, for the latest on that.